Oh, good old Satisfactory. The lovely building game. So when Satisfactory Update 5 came out, I decided to make yet another start over. And there's a lot of things that changed, and one of them are the new material types. And as you can see, this building uses like all of them. It's also, if you're wondering why there's just random presents around, that's because of the Xmas thing, because it's around Christmas time at the time of recording. Um, but either way, there's sulfur over that way, and there's a coal node on the other side of this building. And this is an ideal place to make sulfur, or I should say black powder. And I've done this in the past, but while I was building, these trees, which they also updated in Update 5, were just really, really pretty. And then I decided, kind of cool to make a home base here. And, well, that's exactly what I've done. For starters, this isn't fully complete. There's things I'll probably change. And this is a very nerdy video on how, everything is all set up and run, because it is very complex, especially on the second floor. But we'll get into that. And before we even walk in, I've used these lights as power poles, which I can't say I always recommend because it's very hard to zipline on these, but I think it gives it a really cool look coming in here. And you can see the belt line for the... Oh, I can't pick that up. For the sulfur. And then you have our driveway. And you have a side entrance over here. So let's start over here. So, the first floor is mostly just black powder production. Got the sulfur coming in here. And then the coal is coming from over there. And that is actually a pier node, which, as you can see, coal goes somewhere else. We'll cover on that later. But I believe there's 8 of these, I forget what you call them. And all the black powder goes over there. And they also like to run wires, in ways that aren't very noticeable, like a lot of this wiring is run on the ceiling. Or if we take a look out on the driveway, one thing you don't notice is a lot of wires for these lights out here, because they're pretty hidden. I actually don't know why this is here. I assume that was to control this lighting. I just never hooked it up. Again, there's some little things that are missing, but it's all mostly done. I also plan to make a hypertube network around my facilities, and because this is the only place that's actually complete, I haven't even started on the tube network yet. Well, not really. And over here we have a switch. So this is the main grid. So if we want to turn this off in the main grid to just power this area only, you can do this right here, and it shuts everything off. So there is a backup generation system over that way, which I'll cover on later, but for now we mostly rely on the main grid. And then over here we have our, what are they called? Nobelisks. Our Nobelisks production. So all the black powder comes over here, and then goes through the bottom belt into these assemblers. And then we have steel pipe that comes in from underneath. We'll cover on that later. And that goes on right through. Also note that the that the steel pipe is a temporary production. Things are gonna change a lot, so it's gonna be more of a permanent line. But that is all temporary, anyways. And then all the excess black powder, using smart splitters, which are really awesome, by the way. They go up here, and we'll cover on that later. And this is the nicest floor, in a way, because most things are fairly organized, because you got your main line here and then your second line here. But as you can see by all the stuff going up and down, things are very complicated. And the main floor system is just a ladder with, like, what are those? Catwalk crossings. Because 4 of them make, like, the size of a normal foundation, so it allows you to make, like, a little hole for a ladder. Because this build is so small, like, it's really built into this land area. Like, I didn't want to cut down any of these beautiful trees. And of course we have the coal node over there. Really limited how big I can make this place. And if I were to redo this place, one of my biggest things would just to be make it bigger. Because there's a lot of things where it's not ideal because it's so small, and I wanted to do some. Hi there, floating controls. Let's go over there through the driveway. And as I noted earlier, a lot of the power cables are very neatly tucked. So one of the awesome things with update 5 is if you can clip things and it just warns you, although I'm not sure why it doesn't warn you there. But I really hated power cables in this area, so they're all clipped, basically. And then the power line from there comes over here, which then goes to the switch, which is over there. And I believe these are for the lights down below. And then this monstrosity is for the main control switch of the whole factory, which I'll touch on later. But that was the most elegant solution I could come up with. And then that's just a part of that as well. But if we come in, this area I'm really happy of. It's so pretty. So basically, the user-facing side, you have this industrial container, and you drop off like whatever you want, basically. So I'll put those in later, but you can just like put almost whatever. Whenever isn't processed is automatically sent to an awesome sink. And then whatever you put in here, it makes fabric and color cartridges. And it turns out this area was like on a ton of flowers, and made a ton of color cartridges. And there's another container elsewhere that is like has a ton of these in it as well. So I'm just overflowing with color cartridges. And then from there it makes biomass. And what's cool here is there's these control switches. So some things like these where are they? These gelatin pads, and I think there might be a few other things, and they need the biomass. So it's really helpful to be able to just have some biomass just laying around, although I don't have any right now. And if this switch is on, it makes solid biofuel, but if it's off, it just piles up biomass. And then it goes over here where it stores up. Or If this is on, it makes liquid biofuel, which powers a small generation plant. Cover that later. But generally speaking, it's really simple, and it's just really nice. And I also love the coated concrete. It's just, it's really nice. Also, these are here because if you drive this right here, it opens that door up. And just, even if you're not in the vehicle, it just leaves the door open. I have no idea why it does that. But anywho, on to the real mess, or the real magic, depending on how you want to look at it. So over here, these are controls for, honestly I forget where. I think this is for the lighting downstairs, and I believe this is actually oh, these are the lights for the ones outside in here, because those are blue. I also kind of wish that these lights would like shine blue or whatever, because they shine white, that they're actually blue. But then these ones actually shine the color that they are. It's weird. Maybe they'll change that in the future. But here is the outside container. And as you can probably see, yeah, it's pretty messy. Not to mention you have multiple power lines because of the switches, so let's get into it, just how it starts out. So this is the drop-off container, and let's dump some leaves, flower petals, alien corpse, wood, and then some cement for whatever else. So it flows out, and using these smart splitters, it figures out where to go. In this case, the cement is what can't be processed, so it's sent up and back down, and that goes to an awesome sink down over, right over there. I guess it's pinging the glass. And as you can see, there's the occasional black powder. So that's coming up over here, I think it is. Yeah, so that's coming up and going to the awesome sink, because that's overflow. And as you can see, now it's doing the flower petals, which is going to be slightly problematic because this is completely full. And I didn't expect this to be such a problem, but turns out it was a pretty big problem because I have so much of those. And again, space constraints. I added a buffer storage container for all of these, but I couldn't add one for this. So using the smart splitters, those spill out into little buffers that go into constructors. So we got leaves, we've got wood, and that's all automatically sorted. We got alien organisms and the other alien parts, which, by the way, that is a ton. Like they can't even like operate like even close to 100% because these things produce so much. And this is a Mark V belt too. So over here we have the biomass production. That's all getting merged, and it's sent with these two lines. So if you had mycelia, it would come over, and again, I didn't have enough space for a storage buffer. But it comes over here in this assembler, and it comes with this biomass. So any overflow biomass goes to the other container that's over there. So if we had mycelia, it would start producing fabric with an almost unlimited supply of biomass. Because, as you can tell, we just have so much of it. And that snakes all the way around. Again, it's more messy than I'd absolutely like. But such a small space, a lot of things in such a small space. And that snakes over here, where this is now very rapidly filling up. And then the switch is right here, and you can see the little power points. And those control the power for these two constructors. So when it's off, these don't have any power, and these won't make any solid biofuel. So if this was making solid biofuel, it would come back over here, just following this belt. This half is all biomass, and then it's either fabric or over here it's color cartridges, and then everything else gets sent up like we saw earlier with the concrete, and that gets dumped over to the awesome sink. Yeah, that's how that works, right? Yeah, I could get that goes down. So that's mainly this floor, which it is pretty complex, but there's another floor to it. And where is it? If you notice, this floor is going to the next floor, going straight from the first to the top. But then over here, there's one going down, but it also goes with the awesome sink line. So what's that about? Well, glad you asked. Follow me. Also, this is the other container full of color cartridges that I was talking about. Really, I have a ton of them. And for the top and possibly best floor, and trust me, the view is really awesome at night. Hopefully we'll be able to see that. But we have the hub, the biomass burners that we obviously do not use. Put a guard railing around, because especially with blade runners, it's real easy to fly off, and you can really hurt yourself, especially if you don't have blade runners on. But I also wanted it to be like you can see everything around, because it is really beautiful, and almost all of my other builds are in like deserts or lands that aren't exactly pretty, and this is more of like not exactly the most functional factory, because this doesn't produce very much. It's mostly black powder and whatever you dump in it. This is more of a home base. And something I really like is I put this glass panel here, so if you're like over here, you can like see without the railing, because if you like come jumping in, you will hit it. And by the way, this glass, when you hit it, oh my gosh, I love that so much. The attention to details, I love it. And over here you have like a little shelter area. You can also see for this area down below, the factory part you can't see. You got like your awesome shop, another crafting bench, because occasionally you play with other players and you can't use the same crafting bench at the same time. Equipment workshop, yes, I knew that was called. Extra storage that I don't think like anything's in. Gets an extra hover pack. And of course, a man. And here's where the real fun is. This is still work in progress, because most of my other, like, this is like the only real complete area I have, like actually like really complete, which will only have little minor tweaks. So there's obviously going to be signs of on all of these, and this is where we're storing the nobelisks, which I guess we're now full of. So using smart splitters, and this controls this top floor lighting, which is all blue again. Shouldn't this be overflow? I think this should be overflow. Either way, I'll figure it out. But I have a bunch of these containers, and I plan to pipe a lot of things into the factory, like belt making materials, fuel, basic building supplies, concrete, etc. And I've actually never done something like this before, but it's really helpful. Even though I haven't really used it yet, I just know something like this is actually really helpful. And there's like a little shelter above it. And there's a ladder if you want to go on top and view the area below, which I'll cover all that briefly. But this will be filled with smart splitters, and whatever, and as you can see, the nobelisks that aren't being stuffed in there because those are full keep going along, and that goes down, and that is the other line that came down that also goes to the awesome sink. So anything you dump in that storage container goes into the awesome sink that can be processed, and everything that's overflow from these containers that has nowhere else to go also goes into the awesome sink. And as I alluded to earlier, the place with the very ugly backside, but shh, don't look over there. We have two switches, lights and factory. What do they do? Well, if you turn this off, the entire factory power is cut. So every floor, like all the power for all the machines come through here. So the entire building still has power, just not the machinery. So like all the lights are still functional. However, if you want to turn off all the lights, well, that's all on one switch too. Then it turns off all the lights in the building, and I believe it also turns off the lights in these little bridges, which we'll cover on later, but they aren't actually very effective, which is a little disappointing. But the main goal of this is when it's like night and you just want to be like surrounded by nature, and you don't want the lights and you don't want the noise, you just want to really enjoy it, you can just turn the whole factory off. And this is just locally, it's not like it's turning all that off, because you can't hear that. And rigging this all up took a really long time. Hence, so many ugly wires. If you noticed around, there was like a lot of like multiple circuits, like especially the second floor. There was like 5 different circuits, because you got like the lights, then you got the lights in the user part area or the garage area, and then you have to turn off the electricity for the solid biofuel and the power that goes out to the generators, and yeah, it's a lot, but and it took a while, but I think it's really worth it. So that's that floor, which probably has the most work yet to be done. And here we have our pier miner, which that's a lot of coal. We also have a door over here, which I don't think I touched on, but... And this is the line of the solid biofuel going down to the generator. Actually, why are you not... Why are you not on light? I don't know. I'll deal with that later. So you got the line for the biofuel. Got the line coming up for the overflow, which later goes back down. You've got, I think this is the overflow or the awesome sink line. And then you have the line that goes up to the storage container. So this is where the nobelisks go. And then you have this line. So the excess coal goes here, then goes out to one of our generation plants, because the pure coal node is just so, it's like 600 per minute, and you have 8 of these, and these are 7.5 coal a minute. So we're barely using that pure coal node. And so all the extra coal is just power. And I could overclock these, but like there's no real gain because black powder only makes 2 things. Nobelisks and bullets for the shotgun or whatever you want to call it. But that needs beacons to produce the bullets for some weird reason. I really don't know why they decided to do that. But I know that's a very intentional choice by the developers. So I haven't been able to automate those yet, but those will be another thing that's shipped up. And that's going to be the other thing that the black powder is going to use. And as you can see, we're already pretty good on nobelisks. And the rest of those are just being dumped in the awesome sink. So let's find out where all these going. Where all those are going. So we got another door over here, which leads to a staircase, and whoa! There's so many belts. So we have the biofuel line, and we also have power down here. I'll explain that in a second. You got the coal line, you got the line coming in. This is currently just the beams, but it will later be like everything will come through this line, I believe. And then anything that isn't beams or overflow is going to be piped up into those containers. I believe that's kind of how that's all going to work. And then this is the awesome sink line. And then we have this bridge, which I know I could just use the conveyor poles, but this is just really a straight run to over there, and I wanted to make it look pretty nice, so I built this little structure. And originally it was just like one high and then a roof, but then they made it too high and added lights, which unfortunately, because it's so low down, you can't really see like lights unless you're really close to them at night or whenever. Unlike you can in the factory, like almost all the time, especially at night. So we have 2 hyper tubes. I'm gonna use them at some point. Don't know yet. It's also a pretty nice place to run power through. So we have just a tunnel, and this leads to our external power plant and awesome sink station. So what's happening here is that one line just goes straight into the awesome sink. It's not much more than that. We got the extra coal line that goes out to that massive coal plant. I'll touch on that in a second. We have the biofuel line that goes into this refinery, which is really unfortunate because liquid biofuel is really powerful. Yeah, 150 megawatts. And I think normal fuel is like 75 megawatts or something along that. It's not as powerful. So like, it is really like, I like the idea of the liquid biofuel and whatnot, but because you can only use it such late in the game, and then you have coal and like all these other power sources, it's just, there's no real space for it. So it's sad. And I think I might end up removing that later, just because like I'm probably gonna have a huge excess of liquid fuel, gasoline or whatever you call it, the orange stuff, that if I actually do need like external power, I will just make some generators and throw them wherever I need them, and like have a container and decontainerize them and all that. Because ultimately I have a room in what's going to be my main factory that, like, the basement has 101 batteries in it. So I didn't really show this, but where's the power pole? Where's the power pole? Here's the power pole. So if we go over to this, as you can see, we have this massive battery bank. And like, this is a lot of power. And I was running on the batteries for like a week or two, because there's just so much overhead there, which ultimately makes this really like useless, because I just have this huge battery overhead that is just way more than what that generator can make, even if it's power shorted or whatnot. It's just, there's no real practicality to it, which really sucks, because I really wanted to make this and hopefully use it one day and it'd be really cool, but yeah, it's unfortunate, and I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I might just make liquid biofuel and package it or something. I really don't know what I'm gonna do with that. But over there, we're making steel beams. We have a small a small coal plant. I'll go over there briefly, but coal and steel pipe are being piped over here. The coal isn't hooked up yet, but there's 4 coal nodes over there, and the access will come here and merge with the pure coal node that goes over there. And I'm still working on this, hence why there's a hole in there. I also will probably redo the supports at some point, because I just eyeballed them. But if we come over here, this is where the majority of all the coal goes. I believe there's 49 coal generators here. I would have added more, but there's just this huge rock here, so I couldn't add any more, but 49. And the pure coal node, after we factor in the assemblers for the black powder, it can support, I believe it was like 39 coal generators. That is a lot. So yeah, there's a lot of coal generators here, and the main limit here is just the water pipes, because you only have Mark 1 and Mark 2. Mark 2 is 600 per minute, so we have 13 coal generators on each side, minus the last one over there. That's just slightly below the capacity of the 600 Mark II water pipe. So each side has its own independent water pipe. As you can see, they don't connect at all. And so we got 5 per line. And I'm probably going to redo this all later because this isn't exactly super neat or nice. I kind of want to put it over there in the distance, just so it's less in the way. And there's the other bridge. So I built that bridge originally as 2 and the other one as run. And then I added the lights and then the hypertubes. And then I added that. And then I retrofitted the other one. So they're A, more symmetrical with each other. And B, it just has more functionality with the hypertubes. That will probably come in handy much later. But I'm not even I haven't even started to set up these cool generators, and we're already really good on power right now. Oh, also, up there are 2 pure crystal, I forget what it's called, nodes over there. So I didn't really touch on that. That's where that's making. That's kind of where that's being produced. It's really like haphazard, very temporary, not automated system. So it's basically just a miner going into a constructor that's going into an assembler that's making the plating for the Mark V, whatever you want to, I forget what the name of the plating is called. The aluminum sheets. So that's where those are being produced. It's not automated yet. Still have a lot of work to do. That is that. Like, I'm only tapping into... Actually, yeah, I'm tapping into both. Which is really interesting because you have those 2 nodes over there, and then there's caves over here which house more. Well, I'll get into that in a moment, but here's the other bridge. And again, this is really not that pretty, so I'll probably redo that at some point. There's also a cement node. I have the red concrete, which you can use a refinery to make a lot more cement. So the current goal is to like make cement and to ultimately make reinforced beam and other cool stuff out this way. And just given how big these coal plants are, it makes that look so small in comparison. Ah! Oh well. So we've got 1, 2. This is the temporary iron rod production. 3, and then right behind it, 4 coal nodes. So I'm still not sure I'm gonna work it out, but I'm gonna make a bunch of iron because I have this alternative recipe which uses iron ignots, whatever you want to call them, and coal to produce 3 steel ingots. So my current goal is to make this a huge steel factory, and then have at least be 2 or 3 floors where we make steel beam, steel pipe, and reinforced beam, and all that. Because I've got the concrete production over there, and there's also a copper, which is going over here to make the other stuff for the aluminum sheeting, because that's really complicated. And I also might redo this coal plant. Still unsure what I plan to do with all this area. Still a huge work in progress, but that is the ultimate goal, and steel ingots are currently just being piped over to my main base, which is, well, where that is. Because I didn't have smart splitters at the time. So, like, a lot of this, I was being built as I was advancing a lot in technology. Like, it didn't have Mark II power. I didn't have Mark V conveyor belts. I didn't have all the lighting. I didn't have all the materials like coated concrete or the glass floor panels or whatever you want to call them. So I was advancing a lot in technology, and that's why there's a little bit of a mix mash of technology, of like my Mark III and Mark V conveyor belts a lot. And over here is the cave system where there's crystal. It's very weird how it's being rendered right now, but it's really deep. It's a really big cave. I haven't explored the map too much, so I want to say it's one of the bigger caves in the game. It goes on for quite a long time. There's a lot of power shards in there too. But that's just feeding an awesome sink right now. Because I later discovered about the 2 other quartz right over there. But yeah, that's a very nerdy tour of my new home base, and fortunately it has it at night. I'll probably just make a little quick what it looks like at night. It's really cool. There's a lot of Update 5 brought a lot of cool things, and it really allowed me to make something really awesome, and I've never made anything this nice before. And it's really like a build that I wanted to build like around the nature, because it is such a beautiful area. Especially because Update 5, they updated like the trees, especially those trees, because those glow in the dark, and it's really cool. Just don't mind all this color pollution. So yeah, there you have it. I hope maybe we're inspired by this build, and I definitely have a lot of plans and ideas for version 2 of this. When Update 6 probably releases, I'll probably start over. Maybe not, but I think it's likely. And I definitely have plans for another version of this base in the same area. And yeah, I'm kind of looking forward to it. Even though I put like several weeks time into this. Admittedly, there were a lot of days break, and a lot of it was really slow just because there were so many problems of just running the power, running the belts. And I had to redo it all at one point just because I wanted to put one of the really big machines. What are they called? Manufacturer, because I wanted to put manufacturer in there, but unfortunately it doesn't really fit. And so that's a nerdy look into what is the biggest undertaking. Don't die. Okay, there we go. Into what was one of the biggest undertakings that I've done in Satisfactory, and it turned out real awesome. So thank you for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and because it's that time of year, Merry Christmas.